Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to SCLC TV. I'm your host, Maynard Eaton, and of course, our president and CEO, Dr. Charles Steele Jr. Dr. Steele, the whole world's applauding the vaccinations for COVID-19. Will you be vaccinated? Will you take a shot?
Well, Maynard, first of all, I'm from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and I can't forget about the Tuskegee experiment that took place in Alabama. You're talking about, let's give a little history. You're talking about 40 years that this government experimented upon the individuals, the black males there in Tuskegee. And 40 years, even after they discovered a cure for syphilis. Now that's something that, and not to mention other cases, but that particular one stands out so vividly. What I'm saying is that we must make sure that we are very precautious in terms of what we do. You can never, this is, I'm giving you an answer, but it's not the answer or yes or no. Let me give you another example. There are millions, and Mr. Eaton, you and I talked about this just shortly. There are millions, 8.5 million folks in the last 5-6 months that's in poverty right now. And this
8 million more.
8 million more. Yes, sir. And I go back to the fact that we've loved this country for many of years and thought at some point it would do the right thing. 8 million more people have been reported and recorded to the stats of poverty. That's a shame and a disgrace.
And that doesn't include the people going to be evicted this week or can't feed their children for Christmas, et cetera, et cetera. That's just the ones reported. There are a lot of folks out here hurting now. You well know that.
A lot of folks have not even being counted, not even participating because they've given up on this country. So for me to say, yes, just follow the lead and do what they say is right, investigate and make sure that you make yourself protectively in terms of you're wearing your mask, social distancing. But I'm not going to tell anyone because let me just say this. 48% of African Americans do not trust the government in terms of what it's doing. If the government was trustworthiness, they would not let people go in poverty the way they are. They could save this country in terms of poor people and people who just basically want to do the right thing as Americans. And this country has let us down again.
Dr. Steele, have you noticed, it's kind of cynical of me or a PR move. Most of the folks you see on the news being vaccinated, the first person was a black woman. I mean, are we trying to put black folks up front to assuage them, to make black folks feel calm about this?
Well, I don't look at what it takes in any situation. I look at the track record and the action, not only the federal government, but leaders and individuals on a daily basis.
I'll have some breaking news for you. No one else knows this. No one else has reported it yet. But Reverend Darrell Winston, and 80 other pastors have signed an open letter to Kelly Loeffler. May I read part of it for you? I'd like to get your reaction.
Sure, please do. Please do.
It said, your most recent attacks against Warnock for sermons condemning police brutality, advocating criminal justice reform, and expressing support for measures to reduce gun violence, all concerns of your congregation are beyond the pale and cannot go unaddressed by members of the faith community. The reprehensible false equivalencies must stop. We call upon you, Kelly Loeffler, to cease your false attacks on Reverend Warnock's social justice, theological, and faith traditions, which visualizes a just and ardent world where love, fairness, and equal justice under the law for marginalized people of all races is not only accepted as an authentic prophetic message in the tradition of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but also a central message of the gospel of Jesus Christ. We call on you to cease and desist your false characterizations of Reverend Warnock as radical or socialist. Your response, sir. No one else has heard that.
Well, first of all, I agree with the ministers. that should be a line drawn in terms of politics and the fact that you don't respect your opponent to the degree that you tell lies. And as you know, I've been knowing Reverend Warnock for many of years, and we're just 2 blocks apart from each other. He's serving the capacity of Dr. King's and Daddy King's pulpit and church as the leader there, doing a great job for many of years. And I'm in the capacity of Dr. King in terms of SCLC, just 2 blocks apart. I understand how it is, the ill feelings when people attack you uncreditably and bring about this type of situation, particularly a pastor of credence and integrity as Reverend Warnock. And I applaud the 80 plus ministers. I uncategorically join them on this program and saying that I would be one of the signatories in terms of the attack. But on the other hand, this also shows when people in the public make a statement, the enemy will always take it out of context. I've been misquoted for many of years. And you have to understand, it's tough, but you must stand up for the merits and the integrity of people and not bring about this type of attack. It's wrong, and she should apologize to Pastor Warnock.
Many people believe that politics in and of itself are morally incorrect. You've been in politics yourself. It's not goody two-shoes in politics all the time. But some find it very offensive, this attack against Reverend Jeremiah Wright. And I know you're a friend of his.
It's one, again, taken out of context. Anyone would know what Reverend Jeremiah Wright was insinuating without saying that he's turned his back. Matter of fact, he was also the pastor of President Barack Obama at the time and for many of years. So my saying is that, don't you know if Reverend Jeremiah Wright was that bad of a person, president, prior to being President Barack Obama being in the membership of that great church, that he would not be there along with other people of integrityness? That's what this system does, Mr. Eden. It tries to tear the fabric of what we represent and take it out of context. That's another example.
But now there are critics, and you've heard them too, of Reverend Warnock, who say he's not talking about Black reparations. He's not talking much about the Voting Rights Act and stuff like that. It sounds like he's a middle-of-the-road kind of guy who's not going to advocate much for Black folks, much like some say President Barack Obama did not do that much for Black folks. Some have made that argument. Well, you know it.
Yeah, but I've always said you're dealing with a system. Now, when you put yourself in the system of politics in America and anywhere else, but I'm talking about America, United States of America, and I'm talking about the transatlantic African slave trade. We have been in this system and nothing changed, Mr. E. We are still here in a racist system called the United States of America. And I've said that many times, and don't back up. Who would I be not to say this? That's why you're not going to see the truth come out on many of the major newspapers or networks, and nobody attacking nobody. We don't have a color on doing what's right or what's wrong. It has no color. It's colorless when you right or wrong. And when you're in position and don't represent the people who are less fortunate than others, I have a remedy. I'm a vote for you, and you're good people, but you have succumbed to the system, understandably so. Listen to me. I understand that. No problem. But once you get in that position, we're going to push and push very hard to make you do what is right. That's the answer.
If I hear you correctly, you're saying, sir, because he's running, he or others of his ilk are running, and what becomes a national race, they're kind of controlled or packaged and really can't step outside that bubble until they get in office? Is that what you suggest?
How many times, Mr. Eden, have you heard me say that's part of it? That's part of the system. How many times have you heard me say politics has never freed us? we must free politics. Isn't that one of my cliches? I always say that. Don't look to politics to free us, because it is constrained and contained in a system. So we got to send the right folks there. So once they get there, they'll work with those like ourselves in the civil rights movement and others, poor people of all ethnicity and background. Not a racist type of thing, but we do know it's racist, and it's always been racist toward Negroes, African Americans, and people of color. Once those folks in office, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, we must put pressure on them, because politics has never freed the oppressed. The oppressed must free politics.
Let's end this on a uplifting note, if you will. Names like Satchel Paige and Roy Campanella and Hank Aaron, names like the Newark Crackers and the Birmingham Barons, the Negro Leagues, they're now in the Hall of Fame. Their statistics, I mean, they're on the same par as the major leagues now. That's quite a salute to their success and their achievements and what they meant to Americans' pastime. Am I right?
I used to go see a lot of those teams. Then they had one that was comical. People might not remember, the Indianapolis Clowns. I never forget, man. That was a black baseball team. And we've been ostracized from so many opportunities. But that's when we went to the parks. The Atlanta Black Crackers. Did you know that? They were called the Atlanta Black Crackers because the white team was called Atlanta Crackers. Right. Hello, somebody. So you're talking about a lot of history there. Well, even the prominent individuals themselves, like Willie Mays, and as you mentioned, Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson, all of those guys came out of the Negro League. And I thank God that before I make my transition and go to my Heavenly Father, that I saw that come to fruition. Because I love baseball. Always wanted to play baseball. When I couldn't make the team, man, I was a bat boy. I wanted to be around baseball. I wanted to be around baseball.
That was my sport, too. That's what got me in college and out of college, playing catcher for Hampton. But also, I want to make a note before we leave. A salute to an Atlanta a black Negro League player who of some renown named Chico Renfro. The late Chico Renfro was a civil rights activist himself, sir. He knew Dr. King and Auburn Avenue real well, but Chico Renfro was a legend in Atlanta. And I just want to say, since that's where our show is based.
And he has a legend in his own right. And that name is very pertinent to the civil rights movement. Many of those guys, go ahead.
I said, just like your name. But you couldn't play baseball.
I couldn't play baseball, but I was a bat boy. Thank you, Mr. Eden. And I just want to say this. You probably don't know it, and I've mentioned it once or twice. Many of people around the world, because this broadcast goes around the world, complimented not only you, but our producer, in terms of Mr. Rick Clear, in giving them actual facts and news breaking opportunities with this program that they won't get from another network or news show that traditionally people turn into. And I just want to thank you and our producer, Mr. Rick Clear.
Well, we thank you for allowing us to do it. We thank you for this opportunity to showcase you what you know and SCLC. Have a good week.